So just put in all the raw data, the raw numbers, and if your close rate's 50%, 30%, 5%, it doesn't matter, because once we know the truth, then we can use the truth to move forward and improve. Hey, and welcome back to Builder Funnel TV. In this video, I want to break down for you the science of a marketing and sales funnel. So a lot of people, I think, when they're trying to grow, they say, great, I need more leads to grow. But that number is pretty vague. You need more leads. Okay, how many? And so that's what I want to dig into, the nitty-gritty details. Today, we're going to get into the math and break down how do you figure out how many raw leads you need to actually get a new customer. Because if we can get it down to that point, if we can get it down to a science, then it gives you a lot of control when it comes to your marketing efforts, your marketing campaigns, and the initiatives that you're trying to figure out. Where should I spend my money and where should I put my time and effort? Let's dive in. So we're going to start with some math here. The first thing you need to do is identify each of the core stages of your sales process. So you might have raw leads in. So that's going to be anybody that calls in, a form submission on your website, an email introduction, just an email coming in. We call those all raw leads. That's going to be your big bucket at the very top. The next one is going to be, and I'm just going to use an example sales process here, so just modify this for your sales steps and your sales process, but a lot of people have a phone pre-qualification stage. So, okay, that's step 2. I get people on the phone and I ask them some questions and I try to figure out, is this person worth investing in an in-person meeting or whatever that next step meeting is? It could be via Zoom or whatever. So raw leads, phone pre-qualification, and then maybe you do first appointment. And so then you're going to gather all that data. That's going to be anybody that you make it to that stage with. And then we're going to look at, maybe you do a design meeting, and then that goes to a construction meeting, and then you have signed contracts. So whatever your sales stages are, kind of those, it could be broken out by meeting or by stage, kind of milestone within the sales process. You need to identify those things first. If you haven't actually ever done this before, in terms of, I'm sure a lot of you have broken down the sales stages, but if you haven't actually figured out how many of those you have in a given time frame, I would recommend pausing this video and going back and gathering all of that data. So I'd encourage you, if you can, pull the last, say, year's worth of data. So again, if we go back to that raw leads, you might go and say, okay, over the last 12 months, I've had 300 raw leads, or whatever the number is. So enter that. Then how many phone pre-qualification calls did you have? How many first meetings? How many design? How many construction? And then how many contracts won? So basically what you want to get down to is numbers. And again, you can download the spreadsheet below, but you just have numbers entered for each one of those stages. Now, there's a couple of notes here. The first one is that you want as much historical data as possible, because that will result in a truer law of averages. So if you just take last month's numbers, there's a good chance that that's going to be way skewed, because maybe you had a bunch of, let's say, construction meetings, so very bottom of the sales funnel, but you didn't have any signed contracts. Well, the next month, a lot of those construction meetings will result in some sales the following month, and so the sales might be higher that month. And so if you look at it month to month, this data is not actually that helpful unless you're doing a super high volume, then it could be. But generally, you want to look at a longer time frame. So that's the first point there. But the second point is that we want truthful information. So I don't want anyone lying about their closing rate, saying, oh yeah, I closed 50% of all my sales calls, or any of this garbage. We don't care. Honestly, at this stage of the game, we don't care. What we care about is what reality is. So just put in all the raw data, the raw numbers, and if your close rate's 50%, 30%, 5%, it doesn't matter, because once we know the truth, then we can use the truth to move forward and improve. And we can either grow our raw leads and say, hey, that's one way to get more sales, or we can work on conversion rates within the funnel. But either way, we want the truth. And so what this boils down to is that you actually get to a spot where you know exactly the amount of raw leads that you need to close a deal. And so, an example of this might be, 52 raw leads, 35 phone pre-qualification, appointments, then 20 in-person, 8 design, 6 construction, and 5 signed. So you can do the math and you can figure out where you're at for there. That works out to, 10 raw leads to close a deal. For us here at Builder Funnel, we've figured out, hey, for every 22 raw leads, we know we sign a customer. And the reason this becomes so valuable is if you're saying, hey, I know that for every 10 or 15 raw leads that come into my business, whether it's somebody that subscribes to my email newsletter, or it's a phone call, or they fill out the contact us form, anything, any combination of those. But if I get 15 more of those, I close a deal. Then now you say, okay, great. Well, I want to grow my business. I want to grow by 10%. I want to grow by 20%. Whatever the number is, you can just go back to that raw leads number and say, well, how do I get 20% more of those? And then you're going to live with the results of the law of averages, people moving through that funnel, but that's historical, truthful data to your business. And so you're not having to lie and figure out like, oh yeah, if I just increase my close rate, well, like some of those are hard to do. Sometimes increasing your close rate is difficult, but increasing your raw leads, that's something that you can more easily impact. And so what this does is it breaks down the math behind growing your business. And if you can just, gather all the historical data, put it into the spreadsheet, then you know the truth, then you can look at your marketing and say, great, how do I get 15 more raw leads this month or this quarter or whatever time frame fits your goal? Now, we don't have time to break it down in this video, and so I'll cover that in a future video, but the next step to this is, okay, where are those raw leads coming from and which of those sources is producing the most customers? And if you can break it down to that level, then you can start to improve, okay, well now I know that these 2 channels produce half of my customers. Well, let's do more of those channels, and those will be your first places to look when you go to grow your business. You may still need those other channels, and you may even increase those channels down the road, but if you're looking for the low-hanging fruit, you're going to say, which are my highest performing channels? And you can only do that with tracking, but that's kind of the next level, so I'll break that down in another video. But for today, I have a big call to action for you. If you want to get the most value out of your time watching this, download the spreadsheet that I'll put below. That will give you kind of the tracking funnel, the calculations, the numbers that you can use, and then go back and get as much historical real data for all of your sales stages for a year, for 2 years, for 3 years, however much you can grab. Look at the numbers, and then as you're going in to figure out how much do I want to grow, you can look at that top line for raw leads and say, great, that's my number I need to influence. I know if I can boost raw leads, then that's going to boost my sales. So hopefully this helped kind of break down the science and the math behind your marketing and sales funnel. Again, download the spreadsheet below, and thanks for tuning in to Builder Funnel TV.